guys, this is Imran from Options Insight. Due to the incredible interest that I've had from people asking me about crypto options, once I've told them I've become active in the space, I thought it made sense to start making videos about crypto and crypto options specifically. Now, I'm not a blockchain or crypto expert, but what I am is an options expert. And since June, I've been trading Bitcoin and Ethereum options with my own cash, and I've managed to 5x it. I've also managed to do that in a way where my risk was super controlled and I wasn't going to lose a hell of a load of money. So the idea of these videos in this new series, which I'm going to call Crypto Insight, is to talk you guys through some of the strategies and ways that I'm trading crypto options and taking advantage of my knowledge of trading volatility, term structure, skew, and being able to manipulate those positions to give myself some edge and give myself some advantage in the way that I express my views to participate in these crazy wild swings that crypto markets can have. Being a vol trader, I'll tell you now, the most exciting and the most fun assets to trade, volatility, are the ones that know how to move. And right now, there's no other asset class that knows how to move like crypto. So with that, I hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you like this content, and feel free to sign up for a free trial to Macro Insight, where you'll get this type of content. You'll also get other asset classes, and you'll get live Q&A with me. Now let's talk about crypto. It's been quite an active week in crypto. Let me bring up the charts. So, I mean, the first thing we'll talk about in crypto is Ether, because that's what we were kind of playing from last week, right? So you had this sort of ascending triangle that had been forming with a resistance at around 1450. That got taken out pretty strongly. And you had a pretty swift move up towards 1750, maybe even 1770-ish. And that was like towards the end of last week, right? So I think that was Friday we hit those highs. So it was a nice steady rally pretty much throughout the whole week. We had been playing that through calls generally, shorter dated calls, pick your expiry. To be honest, the vol didn't really explode like I anticipated it would. I thought as you got that break of 1450, the whole world would like want to pile in and vol would go bid. But actually it looked like it was more a case of people were just playing it through futures or through Delta and were planning to let it go before the listing, because the listing was on Monday of the futures. And then you had a bit of a correction over the weekend, got all the way back to 1480 it touched. But then we had Elon Musk to the rescue, right? So Elon Musk comes in, roofs Bitcoin, and then Ether kind of trades up in sympathy, right? If we look at the chart of the spread, which we've been using as a bit of an indicator of where this thing was headed, that spread got as high as 0.046. So, you know, it was looking like it was going to charge towards that 0.05 level, which I'd been kind of targeting. But now look what that spread's done, right? It's completely collapsed back down because the leadership has now gone, Bitcoin has taken over the leadership. And we'll look at the Bitcoin chart now. But basically, Ether had its move, and it was an Ether story. Bitcoin was kind of treading water, not doing too much. That's where you saw the ratio go up to those new highs, or those new local highs. And then once that story played out and people had all kind of taken profit and said, right, the Ether trade's done for now, Elon comes along and says that Tesla's bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they're going to accept payments for their cars in Bitcoin, which is obviously massive. A massive company like that in the S&P, and obviously one of the leading innovators, let's say, embracing Bitcoin and legitimizing it is obviously really good news for the space, and it's triggered that rally. So we've been looking at the wave count and formations, suggesting that correction down to 2850 area was a complete fourth wave correction, and the fifth had begun. This is kind of being confirmed by the price action now. So you had the first Elon tweet where he put Bitcoin on his profile that took us up there. Then you had a correction, and now you've got the sort of meat of the move, right? That's kind of taken us through those highs at 42, and we managed to touch as high as 48, right? So
I think that moves in progress. For me, the obvious first target was around 50,000, but I doubt it's just going to stop at the round number. You might find some sellers up there, but to be honest, this community, the Bitcoin community, seems to be very different, right? It seems to be whoever buys Bitcoin these days thinks it's going to 200,000 plus, right? And they're not planning to sell it that quickly, right? So I think it's charging. I think 50 to 55 is probably where it's going to find some stability now that it's done this break. That would be so maybe let's call it 52,000. It's probably going to be some sort of area of consolidation. And we'll see where it goes from there, right? In terms of how I'm playing it, so obviously I got rid of most of my Ethereum calls that I've been using. I've got some call ratios on end of this week expiry that can kind of max out around 1880 in Ethereum. But I've taken my delta down. So I've got my core holdings that are going nowhere, and then the tactical things that I'd added on to play that break in Ethereum, I've dialed those down massively now. So I'm not overly exposed to Ethereum. I'm running a little bit long, but pretty small, right? In terms of the top up, the tactical longs. Bitcoin, I've kind of had a February call ratio on, which I legged into at quite nice levels. When we tested down here, I bought the February 38,000 calls. As we started rallying before the break, I sold some 52,000 calls in 1.5 times the size. So I'd legged into a 1 by 1.5 call ratio, which had cost me about $1,000. And the most that can make up at 52,000 is 14,000. So spent 1,000 to potentially make 14,000 with a break even at close to 80,000, right? And that's for the 26th of February expiry, right? So that's how I'm playing Bitcoin at the moment in terms of super short term. I do also own some 80,000 March calls because I thought that vol just looked a little bit too low. And I thought that if we did break to new highs, that is the stuff that people would pile into because that's the stuff that was low delta and contained a lot of convexity. As it turned out, on the break higher initially, vol didn't really react, right? So I'll bring up some vol analytics. We'll bring up February. So there you go. So you can see the at the money area in February is up quite a bit. It went from about 100 vol to 125 vol, whereas the upside area, the really upside, like the 70,000 stuff, isn't up by as much, right? So you can see the distance that stuff has jumped is less than what the at the money's done. But that's February, right? So that kind of makes sense because if you're going to buy February options that expire in maybe a couple of weeks, you don't necessarily want to go too far out because you may never get there, right? But if you're buying upside to March, a hell of a lot can happen in 6 weeks in Bitcoin, right? So I'd say that it makes sense for the upside in March to be well bid relatively, whereas in February, they're favoring like the 45,000 area because that's more realistic that you're going to break it, right? Because that's where we are now. That's the at the money stuff, right? I think, so that's basically, the vol market is kind of telling you there that in February, they'd rather own the 45,000 area because maybe the realistic upside in Bitcoin is to 55,000 by the end of February, right? But the vol market's also telling you that longer dated stuff, sky's the limit, right? We don't know how far this thing can run, right? So that's what I would gauge from that. Yeah. So other than that, that was basically it. The main flow in Bitcoin was those call buyers, and I'd been anticipating the call buyers because there were some big call buyers on the last time we broke at the turn of the new year, and I was wondering when that call buyer was going to come back in, basically, right? So obviously, I don't know if it's the same client doing that trade, but the MO is a bit different, right? This time round, they bought much closer to the money strikes, whereas before they were buying way out of the money stuff, right? So I don't know if that's a change in view or just a different type of client who's expressing their view in a different way, right? But I think all it means is, the street is going to be a little bit short optionality around here and up to 52,000. So it probably means that price is going to be quite choppy in Bitcoin, right? Because there's a decent chunk of options that have just been bought by someone. So that means the dealers are quite short, which means that they're going to have to delta hedge those options, and they might exacerbate the price fluctuations, right? So I'd expect it to chop around quite dramatically, but I think the move up towards 52,000 is in progress. And yeah, I'm patiently sitting on my positions to play that right now.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then we'd love to have you join our Macro Insight community. Just visit www.options-insight.com and sign up for your free trial to our live and interactive weekly macro call. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll find more market updates, class highlights from our summer academy, and also video tutorials on anything from options basics to market making fundamentals. You can also connect with me directly. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow me on any of those platforms. Or alternatively, feel free to send an email to inquiries@options-insight.com.